In this video, we will introduce you to one of you. The same technical indicator Bollinger is also very familiar. The Bollinger indicator is basically an indicator that comes with every software. Then let's go through the principle of indicators. Apply and expand to learn more about this indicator. Bollingers are often referred to as Bollinger Bands. This indicator is based on standard deviation in statistics. The principle is designed to be a very simple indicator. The default parameter of the Bollinger indicator is 20. In the chart, there are 3 lines that make up a channel. So a lot of times the Bollinger indicator also. These are called Bollinger Bands or Bollinger Bands. To understand the indicator, you must first understand the formula of the indicator. The Bollinger indicator is calculated among a number of indicators. The method of calculation is relatively complex. As we mentioned earlier, the Bollinger indicator is mainly composed of 3 lines. The middle band of the Bollinger Bands is actually a 20-period moving average. The upper band of the Bollinger Bands is the middle band plus twice the standard deviation. The lower band is the middle band minus twice the standard deviation. To put it simply, the Bollinger indicator is used. The first step is to calculate the middle band of the Bollinger Bands. The middle band of the MA Bollinger Bands is a simple 20-period moving average. Moving averages, we've talked about them in our previous videos. It is the sum of the closing prices of 20 candlesticks divided by 20. Then we get the value of the 20-period moving average. The second step is to calculate the standard deviation of the last 20 candlesticks. The standard deviation is the arithmetic square root standard deviation of the variance. It reflects the degree of dispersion of a data set. About the calculation of the standard deviation, let's take the default parameter 20 as an example. In the Bollinger indicator, it is the closing price of the last 20 candlesticks. The square of the difference from the 20-period moving average. All the calculated values are summed together. Divide by 20 and average to get the variance. The resulting variance is then squared. The standard deviation corresponding to the last 20 candlesticks is obtained. The third step is to add with the 20-period moving average. 2 times the standard deviation to get the value of the upper band. Subtract the standard deviation by 2 times the 20-period moving average to get the value of the lower band. Then the Bollinger Bands indicator was plotted. As for the idea of Bollinger Bands, it involves a normal distribution of standard deviations. In a normal distribution, the data is moderately distributed. The mean plus or minus a double standard deviation. 68.2% of the data in range. The mean is plus or minus 2 standard deviations. The proportion of data in the range is 95.4%. 99.6% of the data were within the range of 3 standard deviations plus or minus the mean. Bollinger uses a 20-period moving average and adds or subtracts 2 times the standard deviation. The idea of this indicator is Bollinger. 95% of the price can be covered within the channel. Of course, whether or not such a design makes sense is something we'll talk about later. Learned about the process of calculation. Let's take a look at the usual usage in the market. The first is support resistance. Many people believe that the upper and lower bands of the Bollinger Bands have support and resistance. The upper band has a pressure on the price. The lower band has a supportive effect on the price of the second overbought and oversold. Because twice the standard deviation can cover 95% of the market. Therefore, the state where the rise exceeds the upper band of the Bollinger Bands is called overbought. Or a market that falls above the lower band of the Bollinger Bands is called oversold. A lot of people are overbought as well as oversold, according to the slope of the Bollinger Bands. Then you can judge whether the current trend is bullish or bearish. These are some of the common uses of the Bollinger Index. But to understand what exactly this indicator is for, we still have to start with the principle of the indicator as well. Think about the relationship between price movements and indicators. There are three components of the Bollinger Bands: the upper band, the middle band, and the lower band. Be aware of the Bollinger Bands. We need to figure out the relationship between the middle and upper and lower bands and the price. First of all, the middle band of the Bollinger Bands is simply the 20-period moving average. The moving average will follow the price rise and fall. Let's focus on understanding the standard deviation in Bollinger Bands calculations. The standard deviation is based on the price and 20. The difference in the middle of the period moving average is determined. The standard deviation should be based on the last 20 sticks. The relationship between the closing price of the candlestick and the 20-period moving average. When there is a large increase, the moving average is the average of the calculated sum of the closing prices of the last 20 candlesticks. The recent sharp rise will make the 20-period moving average larger, thus turning the head upwards. The size of the standard deviation depends on the price and the degree of dispersion of the 20-period moving average. When there is a big rise, since the moving average is calculated for the last 20 sticks, the average of the sum of the closing prices of the candlesticks, the 20-period moving average will rise. But due to the influence of the average, the influence of the current candlestick is small. The change in the value of the moving average is less than the rise and fall of the candlestick. Therefore, the K line and the moving average are moving in the same direction. But the degree of dispersion between the two will increase. The greater the degree of dispersion, the higher the standard deviation. The upper and lower bands are the standard deviations of the middle band plus or minus twice. The value of the upper and lower bands will increase. The upper band value is larger and the lower band value is smaller. Then, there is an opening in the Bollinger Bands. The same is true when the price is falling continuously. The price has been leading the 20-period EMA. The moving averages have been following the price down. When the price falls to a standstill, the dispersion between the price and the moving average decreases. As a result, the standard deviation calculated for the recent 20 candlesticks decreases. I made a video to explain the support and resistance. If it is said to put the support in the market, resistance is summed up in one sentence to explain. That's when the money in the market is based. The operation of an order at a certain position creates a support resistance. Let's go back and look at the upper and lower bands of the Bollinger Bands. Whether the money in the market is based on the Bollinger Bands. What about the operation of the track to carry out the order? The answer is definitely no. The values of the upper and lower bands of the Bollinger Bands are. It is calculated according to a certain formula according to the price. So when you understand what support resistance is, you can understand whether an indicator is or not. There is really a role of support and resistance. Another example is overbought and oversold. A lot of people take advantage of overbought and oversold to set the rules of trading. A price breaking above the upper Bollinger Bands is an overbought state. After the overbought state, if the price returns to the Bollinger Bands track again, it is a signal to enter the market and go short. If the price breaks below the lower band, it is the change in price that affects the change in the Bollinger Bands. It is not the upper and lower bands of the Bollinger Bands that affect the change in price. We learned about the process of calculating the Bollinger Bands. Knowing how price affects Bollinger Bands changes don't reverse cause and effect. Many people use Bollinger Bands to make a rule review to observe. I think it's very easy to use. But once you put it in the current market, there are a bunch of problems. The reason for this is that the Bollinger Bands follow the price of the past, the trend that has been completed. The relationship between price and Bollinger Bands is fixed. But when the price now reaches the lower band of the Bollinger Bands, if the price goes up, the Bollinger Bands will go up. If the price falls, the Bollinger Bands will follow. Observe from the present day depending on the price action. There are a variety of variations of Bollinger Bands, so understand the process. Then you look at the relationship between the current price and the Bollinger Bands track. The so-called overbought and oversold states will be based on the price movement changes accordingly, and another judge the trend. Using moving averages to determine the trend, we do this by looking at the price and the moving averages, as well as the slope of the moving average. Therefore, using the Bollinger Bands to observe the trend is actually the same as the moving average. It's just that it has more effect on the observation of the upper and lower rails. The information obtained is just different. In order for everyone to use the Bollinger Bands indicators, to avoid some misunderstandings, but also to expand a little more. The idea of the Bollinger Bands indicator is good and makes use of statistically normal distributions. Concept to construct this indicator. 95% of the market will be inside the Bollinger Bands. But the process of calculating the Bollinger indicator is understood. What were we able to find? How does the Bollinger Bands indicator reach 95% coverage? The purpose of the market is to keep changing by following the price movements. You can think about the value of doing statistics. Let's go to a region. Each person's height will show a normal distribution. Let's go and count an exam. Each person's score will also show a normal distribution. Through such a statistic, we can get a lot of valuable information. You can see the average height of the local area and comparisons with other regions. Be able to pass the statistics of the results of this exam. To see the difficulty of the exam, we can use the statistics based on the data. Get more valuable information according to our purposes. But we use statistics to get valuable information. What is one of its premises? It's stable data in stable data. We need to do statistics to get valuable information. The more stable the data, the greater the value of statistics. If the standard and range of statistics are in, the stats are changing all the time. So how much valuable information can be obtained from such statistics? So at the root, there's no relatively stable data. The Bollinger Bands indicator doesn't really make much sense. So when does it work? The premise is that the data is stable. For example, in the example above, the price is in the process of being sorted. The value of price fluctuations is relatively stable. That's in such a situation. Bollinger Bands can give us a valuable space. So be clear about using Bollinger Bands. Let's look at the Bollinger Band statistics. The more stable the data, the greater the value of statistics. That's all for this video. If you find the content easy to understand, please deduct 1. If you feel that the content is not easy to understand, please deduct 2. If the content of the video makes you gain something, please help me like the comments and retweet. If you want to see future updates, don't forget to follow. Your support is the biggest motivation for my update.